The city was silent. Once a bustling metropolis, New York had been reduced to a labyrinth of crumbling skyscrapers and overgrown vegetation. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the weight of forgotten memories. Commander Elias Drake's eyes fluttered open, the sterile white light of the cryogenic chamber blinding him momentarily. His body ached as though he'd been asleep for centuries, and in a way, he had. The last thing he remembered was the final battle against the alien invaders, the Zorathians. They had come in waves, overwhelming Earth's defenses and decimating humanity's forces. But that was over 100 years ago. At least, that's what the data logs indicated. He had been placed in stasis, a last-ditch effort to preserve the human race's greatest asset, its military commander. Elias rose from the chamber, his movements stiff and mechanical. His uniform, once pristine, was now tattered and covered in dust. He stumbled forward, his mind racing to process the information flooding his consciousness. He activated the terminal embedded in his wrist, bringing up the planetary status report. The screen flickered to life, displaying a grim message. Earth, extinct. Population, 0. A surge of anger coursed through Elias. Extinct? How could they be extinct? He had fought too hard, lost too many comrades for humanity to simply vanish. Determined to uncover the truth, Elias made his way to the surface. The once proud skyline of New York was now a silhouette against the orange glow of a dying sun. He navigated through the ruins, his boots crunching on the debris-strewn streets. As he reached the central plaza, he encountered the first sign of life, or what used to be life. A Zorathian war machine, its massive frame partially buried under rubble, lay dormant. Its once glowing eyes were now dim, its weapons rusted and useless. Elias approached cautiously, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma blade. He had fought these machines before, but seeing one in such a state of disrepair was unsettling. He knelt beside the fallen behemoth, examining its systems. The alien technology was advanced, but not invincible. He could see signs of internal damage, likely from the final assault. "So, this is the end," Elias muttered to himself. The great Zorathian Empire brought to its knees by their own arrogance. But even as he spoke, a nagging doubt lingered in his mind. If the Zorathians were defeated, why was Earth still in ruins? Why had humanity been left to die alone? His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden noise, a faint hum, like the whir of machinery coming online. Elias tensed, his senses on high alert. He turned toward the source of the sound, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. From the shadows emerged a figure, a human figure. A woman, dressed in tattered combat gear, her face smeared with dirt and blood. She was holding a weapon, though it was unlike any Elias had ever seen. "Who are you?" Elias demanded, his voice rough from disuse. The woman hesitated, her eyes narrowing as she assessed him. Then, slowly, she lowered her weapon. "I'm Captain Lyra Hayes," she said, her voice steady despite the evident exhaustion. Elias studied her, noting the insignia on her uniform, a symbol he hadn't seen in decades. It was the emblem of the Earth Defense Coalition, the last unified military force before the fall. "You're alive," Elias breathed, a mix of disbelief and relief flooding him. "Not for long," she replied grimly. "The Zorathians may be gone, but the galaxy hasn't forgotten about us." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "There are rumors," she said quietly. "Whispers of a galactic purge. The Zorathians weren't the only threat. They were just the beginning." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. A galactic purge. That meant the entire human race was still a target. "We need to act," Elias said, his voice firm with renewed purpose. "We can't let humanity be forgotten." Lyra nodded, her expression hardening. "Agreed. But we can't do it alone." Together they began to plan. Their first objective was clear: find any remaining survivors, rally them, and prepare for the fight ahead. As they set their course, Elias couldn't help but feel the spark of hope. Humanity was not extinct, and as long as they drew breath, they would fight to reclaim their place in the stars.
The air over the ruined city hummed with tension. Dust swirled like ghosts in the wind, tracing through skeletal buildings that once teemed with life. Broken streets stretched endlessly, littered with fragments of war, shattered tanks, twisted vehicles, and rusting remnants of alien machines. Elias Drake and Lyra Hayes moved cautiously, every footstep echoing in the emptiness. Time had stripped the city of its sound, leaving only the distant hum of alien technology still active beneath the ruins. Elias's eyes scanned the horizon, noting the remnants of the once proud Earth Defense Coalition bunkers. Their walls were pockmarked with craters, graffiti etched by desperate humans long ago, some desperate enough to betray each other for survival. He thought about his own past, the moments before Earth fell, friends who had turned on one another, trusted commanders who had abandoned posts. Betrayal had hastened humanity's collapse, and now every decision could mean life or death. Lyra led the way to a subterranean tunnel, partially collapsed but passable. Her movements were careful, deliberate, trained by years surviving a galaxy that no longer remembered humans. Elias followed silently, studying her. There was an intensity in her gaze, a quiet ferocity tempered by grief. She had lost people, perhaps everyone, and yet she walked with purpose. That same purpose had saved her, and now it might save humanity itself. The tunnel opened into a chamber that had once been a data hub. Faded holographic interfaces flickered intermittently, their light casting long shadows. Elias approached one, brushing away dust to reveal fragments of old communications. Messages from leaders, civilians, soldiers, pleas for aid, warnings of Zorathian attacks, and cryptic last messages of those left behind. One caught his attention, a recording of a former admiral, voice trembling, speaking about an internal coup that crippled Earth's defenses before the invasion. "They didn't fall because of the aliens alone," Elias muttered, his voice a whisper lost in the cavernous hall. Lyra's hand rested on his shoulder, silent acknowledgement passing between them. Betrayal had hastened humanity's collapse, and now every decision could mean life or death. They pressed on, moving through the maze of tunnels that connected what was left of the city's underground. Occasionally they would hear the clatter of distant metal, or the hiss of gas from leaking alien machinery. Their senses remained alert, knowing danger could emerge from any shadow. The survivors of the purge were not all human, and not all intentions pure. Finally, they reached a hidden enclave. A small group of humans, gaunt and wary, emerged from the darkness. Some bore marks of battle, others looked like they had not eaten in weeks. The sight of Elias, clad in the old commander uniform, brought cautious awe and hope. Whispers ran through the group, tales of the last human rising from the ashes, of a fleet yet unseen, and a rebellion waiting for a leader. Among the group was a young engineer named Tarek, who had salvaged old Zorathian technology to build weapons for defense. Another, a medic named Selena, had kept alive a small network of children, teaching them survival skills and human history. Each had a story of loss, survival, and quiet resistance. Together, they formed the seeds of a human resurgence. But the reunion was not without tension. Within the enclave lurked a spy, a human who had collaborated with the Zorathians during Earth's fall, hoping for power and favor. Elias sensed it immediately. noting the subtle glances, the hesitation in speech, and the way this person always lingered near the weakest of the group. Every survivor's loyalty was tested in a world where survival often meant betrayal. The first night in the enclave was uneasy. Fires flickered in the underground chamber, casting long shadows on the walls, dancing like phantoms of the past. Elias could not sleep. He thought of the fleet he had once commanded, now gone, scattered or destroyed. He thought of Earth above, silent, lifeless, except for the small pockets of humans like this one. Hope was fragile, like a candle in the wind, but it existed. Dawn came, and with it news from Tarek. The spy had vanished overnight, leaving behind traces of sabotage, vital machinery damaged, supplies missing. Elias realized that the path ahead would not just be against aliens or their lingering machines, but against human treachery as well. It was a bitter lesson. Humanity's strength was also its vulnerability. Without warning, the earth trembled. A low hum began beneath their feet, growing louder, mechanical, alien. The enclave's alarms triggered. Elias and Lyra moved to the entrance, only to see the skyline above alive with movement. A Zorathian patrol fleet had returned. They were hunting, not for conquest. They were hunting for final extermination. Lyra grabbed Elias by the arm. "We have to move, now," she hissed. But Elias held her back, taking in the sight. Alien ships glinting in the dying sun, their weapons scanning for life. This was not a random patrol. They had tracked them here, or someone had betrayed the enclave's location. With no time to debate, Elias rallied the survivors. Tarek armed salvage drones, Selena helped the children find cover, and Lyra prepared defensive positions with makeshift barricades. Elias activated his old communicator, sending encrypted messages across old networks in hopes that other survivors would heed the call. Humanity's last stand was beginning, here, beneath the ruins, in a city forgotten by time. The first salvo of energy beams struck nearby, shattering concrete and igniting debris. Panic erupted among the survivors, but Elias remained calm, his presence a bulwark against fear. He moved through the chaos, giving orders, inspiring courage, reminding each person of what it meant to be human, to fight when hope seemed lost, to endure when the world had turned against them. Then came the ambush. From the rubble, the spy appeared, not alone, but accompanied by a contingent of alien soldiers that had infiltrated Earth's surface undetected. Betrayal cut deeper than any weapon. Elias engaged immediately, his plasma blade igniting with blue fire, slashing through the first attackers. Lyra covered him. Her precision and speed were a blur, but the numbers were overwhelming. Just when it seemed that humanity's fragile enclave would be overrun, a distant roar echoed across the ruined city. Shadows of ships once thought lost appeared on the horizon, old human vessels that had survived, hidden in distant star systems. Reinforcements, or perhaps a mirage. The Zorathians paused, scanning the horizon, as Elias and Lyra regrouped with the survivors. The spy's grin was the last thing Elias saw before the scene erupted into chaos. Betrayal, hope, and survival collided in the ruins of a world that had been written off. Humanity's story was not finished. Not yet. And in that moment, Elias knew the spark of resistance had been lit. The galaxy would remember humans once more, but at a cost that was only beginning to unfold.
The ruins of Earth stretched endlessly beneath them as Elias and Lyra led the survivors through crumbling streets and overgrown highways. Smoke from distant fires mingled with the pale orange light of the dying sun, casting a surreal glow on the remnants of a civilization long thought lost. The ambush had been swift and brutal, and though they had survived, Elias knew the galaxy would not wait. The Zorathians were relentless hunters. Each step felt heavier than the last. Survivors stumbled over debris, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Tarek dragged the damaged drones, his hands blistered from hurried repairs, while Selena guided the children, keeping them calm with quiet reassurances and whispered stories of a better future. Elias moved among them, assessing, calculating, inspiring. Every human life was precious, not only for survival, but for the spark of hope it carried. Above, the sky was not empty. Alien scouts lingered, their sleek warships glinting ominously, scanning for signs of life. Elias had anticipated this, and using an old network of tunnels beneath the city, he led the group to a hidden hangar where a few functional shuttles and reconnaissance craft lay in rusted slumber. The hangar doors had been cracked open just enough to allow their passage, revealing a path to the orbiting remnants of the human fleet. The group moved swiftly, though tension was thick. Each shadow seemed alive with threat, each sound a potential signal of the enemy's approach. Elias's mind raced with calculations: time, fuel, patrols, escape vectors. The escape had to be precise. One mistake could mean annihilation. When they reached the hangar, a flicker of life caught Elias's eye. One shuttle, surprisingly intact, hummed with dormant energy. He approached it, running diagnostics. Power reserves were limited, fuel minimal, but functional enough to lift them off the planet. It would have to be enough. As the survivors boarded the shuttle, a sudden alarm blared from the hangar's old systems. The spy, he had followed them, silent and calculating, had activated a warning beacon. Outside, distant lights of Zorathian patrols converged, faster than expected. They were not just hunters, they were strategists. Lyra's hands moved with fluid precision, locking down controls and coordinating the survivors. Elias started the engines, blue plasma sparks cascading across the landing struts. The shuttle shuddered, groaning under the weight of centuries of neglect. Then, with a deafening roar, it lifted off, ascending through the broken skyline toward the thin veil of atmosphere. Outside the viewport, the alien patrols adjusted course, energy weapons ready. A direct confrontation was inevitable if they failed to evade. Elias maneuvered with precision, weaving through debris and ruined buildings, using Earth itself as cover. Plasma bolts streaked past, igniting fragments of concrete and steel. The survivors held their breath, the tension palpable, each second a life-or-death gamble. Finally, the shuttle pierced the upper atmosphere, the curvature of Earth visible below in silent devastation. Elias allowed himself a brief moment to reflect. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, scattered and forgotten, but the fight was far from over. They would rise again, but first they had to survive the stars. In orbit, hidden behind a debris field, lay the remnants of the human fleet. Forgotten starships, their hulls scarred, engines cold, but still functional. Among them was Captain Rena Voss, a former fleet commander presumed lost in the last great battle. Her arrival brought a surge of hope. Her ships had evaded detection for decades, concealed in shadowed orbits, waiting for the spark of leadership to ignite their engines once more. Elias approached her, recognizing the insignia on her uniform. Rena's eyes, hardened by years of isolation and battles across countless systems, met his. No words were necessary. The acknowledgement was mutual. Together, they could bring humanity back from the edge. Yet the spy's betrayal had not ended. Infiltrating the fleet was easier than expected, sowing seeds of distrust among the scattered crews. Whispers of doubt, accusations, and paranoia began to spread. Elias understood immediately. Trust was humanity's rarest commodity, and betrayal could fracture their fragile resurgence before it even began. Rena guided them to one of the larger cruisers, where survivors could regroup, heal, and plan. Systems were repaired, weapons recalibrated, and communications re-established. The fleet, though small, was formidable. Stealth fighters, artillery frigates, and transport vessels, all ready to strike a carefully chosen target. Elias convened a council among the surviving leaders. Lyra and Rena presented intelligence reports, highlighting patrol routes, weak points, and potential allies scattered across nearby star systems. Every decision carried weight, every plan, risk. The humans had no margin for error. Then came the revelation. The spy had been more than a saboteur. He had been in contact with a Zorathian warlord stationed in a nearby star system, sharing coordinates and fleet movements. Elias realized the galaxy was already a chessboard, and they were only pawns, albeit pawns capable of learning, adapting, and striking back.
The void of space was ablaze with fire and energy. The human fleet, small and battered, surged forward, engines glowing like defiant stars against the black. Zorathian warships, sleek and overwhelming in their numbers, surrounded them, their weapons primed to annihilate the fledgling rebellion before it could begin. The odds were catastrophic, yet within every human heart aboard the fleet, a single thought burned brighter than any fear. Survival was not enough. Resistance was essential. Commander Elias Drake stood at the bridge of the lead cruiser, his hands steady on the control panel, eyes scanning the tactical display. Lyra moved beside him, coordinating fighter squadrons, rerouting power to shields, and directing medics to the wounded. Rena Voss, aboard the tactical command vessel, had already deployed decoy drones, exploiting the aliens' over-reliance on technology. Humanity's edge was not strength, but unpredictability. The first salvo struck. Alien energy beams cut through the darkness, scorching the human ship's hulls. Explosions rocked the cruisers, sending shards of metal into the void. Panic threatened to take hold among the survivors, but Elias's voice, amplified through the intercom, steadied them. Every human aboard was reminded, courage could outweigh numbers, and cleverness could topple tyranny. Tarek's engineering squad worked frantically, converting salvaged Zorathian drones into automated defense turrets. Plasma cannons flared along the human hulls, striking the first wave of attackers. Shields glimmered as energy deflected beams, and the first of the Zorathian warships exploded into fragments, their debris scattering across the vacuum. It was a small victory, but one that ignited hope among the humans. Yet victory was fleeting. The spy's betrayal revealed its full consequences as a hidden fleet of Zorathian reinforcements emerged from a nearby nebula. The humans were trapped. Lyra's hands moved with surgical precision, issuing evasive maneuvers, weaving through asteroid fields and debris. Human pilots, some barely trained, executed maneuvers that defied expectation, dodging beams and returning fire with salvaged plasma rifles. The fight was brutal, relentless, cinematic in its chaos. Amid the turmoil, Elias noticed something. Patterns in the Zorathian formations, repeated movements that hinted at a larger strategy. It was then he realized the depth of the enemy's plan. The ambush was not just to destroy the fleet, but to force humanity into a corner, to drive fear into the hearts of every survivor and break the fragile bonds of trust. The spy had been a key instrument in this design, feeding information that allowed the aliens to anticipate every move. Elias formulated a counterstrike. Using the smallest, fastest ships as bait, he lured the Zorathians into a narrow asteroid corridor. The human fleet struck from both flanks, cutting off retreat and exploiting the enemy's overconfidence. Explosions lit the void, illuminating the bravery of humans fighting beyond exhaustion. Lyra's fighter squadron performed daring maneuvers, sacrificing speed for precision, taking out key alien command nodes.
Meanwhile, Rena coordinated the fleet's energy reserves, rerouting power to weapon systems in real time. The human ships, though smaller and battered, moved with a fluidity that alien technology could not anticipate. Every explosion, every breach, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a force the galaxy had underestimated for centuries. In the midst of the battle, the spy made a fateful move. Attempting to escape aboard a commandeered vessel, he fired upon human reinforcements, hoping to fracture their defense. But Elias anticipated the betrayal. Using a feint and a calculated diversion, the spy ship was disabled before it could flee. Captured alive, he revealed critical intelligence under duress. The Zorathians were not merely targeting isolated colonies. They sought to locate a hidden human archive containing secrets of lost technologies, the very foundation of humanity's resurgence. The revelation was chilling. The enemy had a plan that extended beyond Earth, beyond mere revenge. They intended to erase human civilization entirely, extinguishing every spark of hope across the galaxy. But for the first time, the humans were no longer hiding. They were fighting, not only for survival, but for the right to exist. By the battle's end, the human fleet had sustained heavy losses, yet the impact on the Zorathians was significant. Several command vessels were destroyed, patrol routes disrupted, and alien morale shaken. Humanity had won a victory against overwhelming odds, and the news traveled faster than the ships themselves. Other human enclaves, previously isolated and despairing, began to respond. Signals of solidarity flickered across deep space, messages of hope, courage, and defiance. Elias, standing on the bridge, allowed himself a brief moment to feel pride and grief simultaneously. Survivors around him tended the wounded, salvaged damaged equipment, and mourned lost comrades. The price of resistance was steep, but the spark of rebellion had ignited. The human story, long thought extinguished, was now a fire in the void. As the fleet regrouped, sensors detected an anomaly in a distant sector, a massive energy surge, unlike anything Elias had seen. Rena's face paled as she analyzed the readings. She said, "It's not a fleet. It's something else, something far larger than anything the Zorathians have deployed." Lyra tightened her grip on the console. Could it be another weapon? Or another enemy? Elias stared at the swirling readings, his mind racing. Humanity had survived Earth, evaded ambushes, and struck back against the Zorathians. But the galaxy was far from forgiving. The true challenge was only beginning.